before I get started, please hear this message out before you close this video and hate me forever. When you get diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, all you hear from everybody is you need to learn to cope. Get some coping skills. Cope, cope, cope. But you know what I say? Cope schmope. When I was first diagnosed with OCD, everybody told me to cope. I learned my coping skills and I practiced them faithfully. Despite this, my anxiety did not go away. In fact, in the 6 months after my diagnosis, I got worse. A lot worse. Until it got to the point that all I was doing was coping. All I was doing was coping, distracting, and avoiding triggers. And that's the problem with coping. When you have a high level of anxiety every day, all you end up doing is coping. And while all that coping made me feel good for a little while, the anxiety always came back. I didn't even start to feel better until I started facing my fears. I learned to face my fears with exposure therapy and an intensive outpatient program for kids and adolescents with OCD. Because of ERP, I can live my life again without coping every second. I can experience life and see beauty in it. All because I faced my fears and eventually got over them. With exposing myself to my fears, I got used to the fears and they stopped being fears. And now I don't feel a need to cope, avoid, or distract unless I have extremely high anxiety, which I hardly ever do nowadays. We are not meant to just cope, we are meant to live full lives. And life exists outside of our comfort zones. People with anxiety disorders always say it's not helpful for you to push them into doing something that makes them anxious. But science says it really is. Don't cope. Go out there and live. In exposure therapy, you learn to gradually face your fears, so you can live the full life anxiety once stole from you. Even if you don't do exposure therapy, you can take the steps to reduce your anxiety by slowly facing your fears. When you think about it, this is really common sense, but most therapies only give you tools to cope, while exposure therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy gives you the tools to stop anxiety in its tracks. If you want to learn more about exposure therapy and exposure and response prevention therapy, click the I and click the link in the end screen that will be titled ERP Therapy. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all later on Shalom Aleichem. Goodbye. That was a weird goodbye. Bye. That was a weird goodbye. Bye. I feel like if I don't say it in a high-pitched voice, it just sounds weird now. But anyway. Toodaloo. High level. And that's the problem.